Hello, adventurers, and welcome to Roll For Bluff, our talk show where we discuss our ongoing Dungeons & Dragons campaign. On this show, not only will we be doing a story recap of the events that have taken place in our previous episode, but we'll also be giving you unique player and character insights, as well as some behind-the-scenes skits and bloopers. To my right, we have Tristan, and to my left, we have Brandon, and I am Sam, your host. They'll be joining me as my co-hosts and my alibis. To kick things off, I'm going to hand the reins over to Brandon, our dungeon master, as he dives into the story of our ongoing campaign, Bards and Nobles.
All right. So the story begins in the stereotypical yet picturesque town of Humbleton, where 4 strangers have been sent letters raining from Lord Bellington, who runs a very prominent estates in the local area that looks over the town. And that is where our players met for the first time in the classic bar setting, because who doesn't like to meet in a good old bar? So we had 2 of our players here. So if you guys want to talk about your character for a second.
I play Calmine. I am a tiefling rogue, and I've kind of spent most of my life sort of destitute on the streets, because I was abandoned by my parents.
And I play Sorn Thunderfist Jotunhai, a Goliath barbarian that wanders town to town, using my strength to help those in need, all in the name of my god Thor.
And the other 2 players were Aristotle, an Air Ganassi bard who made a living from performing on the streets, as every good bard does when they start out, and Liren, a Water Ganassi sword mage, which is a variant of a fighter subclass, who sought vengeance for the death of her entire family and clan. So, after being summoned to the Hogcrest Inn, where the bar was, on the outskirts of town, where they found other adventurers had also been summoned, the group meets for the first time by all being seated at the same table. Was this chance, destiny, or poor writing? We'll find out later. So, what was your guys' first impressions of the party?
As far as Sorn goes, he was just more preoccupied with why he was there. Keep in mind that Sorn towers over everyone in the room until, an 8-foot-tall Goliath walks into the room. It's like, what am I here for to fighting? That's all he was really... He was just like, what am I here for? I get a letter. Who knows me?
Who knows me?
Yeah. I think Cal's first impression was very much like, wow, this guy's being really nice and buying me drinks. He must be a sucker.
That's right, I did
Sorn,
buy you drinks.
Everyone drinks.
And then, Liren was really quiet, so that was fine, and Aristotle was really quiet, which is great, because Cal is not a people person, so.
From what I know, Liren thought you were very cold, and she's pretty cold. And she thought you were too joyous and too happy-go-lucky for wherever you were coming from. So that gave the group some time to really at least learn each other's names and what they looked like. And having no real idea of the scope or what they were there for, they eventually were called to order by Koth, which is Lord Bellington's right-hand man. And they were asked to retrieve stolen items, metal, like swords, shields, various wheels that are made of metal, any metal plating. Everything was being stolen from the town by a kobold, goblin, hobgoblin, mishmash horde, pretty much. They were in a nearby cave system closer to the coast. So the team, after everyone was dismissed, accepted and had the night to themselves. They had to stay in the inn, though, and while there, the other people who are staying and partaking of the various drinks and goodies of the bar got a little rowdy. The group did not get rowdy and was very, except for one person, was very like, who the hell do you think you are? When the gentleman came up to talk to them. And a scuffle broke out where the team did not have their weapons, but the other group did. So it was fist against fist, and that is when they first learned that Liren could summon her blade to her in the flip of an instant. So they had no weapons. She popped hers out, and a fight broke out. Which, through quick work, they dispatched the other drunkards, and they were greeted by the leader of the town guard, Devin, the favorite person in Humbleton. Devin, the quick-talking, fast-asking town guard leader. What were your guys' impression of Devin?
I mean, he was a guard. I mean, at that point in time, it wasn't much information to go on based on the fact that we knew his name was Devin. He was the head guard, and he was just trying to keep order. I mean, of course, Soren's fine with everyone until he's given a reason not to. But, I mean, it's just one of those like, oh, you're a guard. You're just trying to keep order. We apologize for the inconvenience.
Yeah, whereas Cal was like, oh, fuck, it's a guard.
It's a cop! It's a cop! What are you, a cop? So, soon after, Devin let them know that they were definitely not allowed to leave at all, and that they should go to bed sometime soon. After they retired for the night, they heard various shouting, and I do believe it was Cal that woke up first to the smelling of sulfur and flame as they look out against the town and see a large figure flying overhead, raining down fire and some sort of sharp, they didn't know what exactly, raining down on the town as a smaller party of goblins and hobgoblins were attacking. As well as the kobold who were doing another raid, but this time the raid was a little more aggressive than normal. So they had, at that moment, met a different traveler named Porun. But his full name is Porun Wund. Very creative name, I know. Who is an Aarakocran paladin for Anubis, which they had just barely gotten to know. And they took care of as many kobolds as they could and saw Devin and the guard trying to rescue as many people as possible. And that is when Devin noticed Soren and the gang, particularly Soren because he's the biggest one to see and he's also the friendliest one. Soren and the gang were doing what they could to help people and fight off the invasion. Which then did not leave much room for sleep in the night. Morning quickly came, and members of the town were being brought to the inn, which also caught Devin's eye when Soren gave food to a hungry child, which gained some favor with the town guard and Devin in particular. So the following day also had them interact with one of the more, I'm not going to say seedy, one of the more quiet, well, how would you put it? The postmen. How would you? They're quiet.
They're more mysterious and secretive.
They're a secretive network, where they were met by Max, who worked for the postmen, which they had seen their symbol before, and their symbol is a wayward flag. So they had learned who the postmen were and what their symbol was, and they were brought to meet with the one, the only, the postman, the leader of the postman.
That voice kills me every time.
So a large orc, who only goes by the name the Postman. They cued in the group of a darker secret, a darker story taking place on the underbelly of the whole situation, and were asked to bring anything and everything they find from then on out that had Bellington's insignia on it. Which I do recall one of you was okay with it, the other one was more hesitant.
I was more hesitant because when you're welcomed into a town, some seedy group like, hey, we're a secret group, things are evil here. You're like, are you sure? It's like, bring us anything with a name on it. It's like, that's a little suspicious. It was, and that's why I think the stipulation was like, Soren was happy to bring anything if he found anything that was suspicious. They're like, oh, things are not quite as they seem. Okay, then I believe you over some other things.
And-
Well, I think Cal's thing was that she probably never originally intended to give anything back, depending on what it was.
She was just like, yeah, sure.
So I was just like, yeah, whatever you want.
So
Great.
the group agreed, and they followed Soren's stipulation of if they found anything incriminating or evil or something bad, that they would give it to the postman. So that leads into the question, what did you guys think about the postman overall?
I mean, I thought they were very secretive, so it was very kind of difficult to discern what their actual intentions were initially.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
when you have a group that's suspicious, hiding underground, essentially, it's hard to like outright be like, yeah, sure, totally trust you. And granted, we are new. This is our first campaign, first like session or two, and it was just like, alright, you're already suspicious that our DM's probably going to throw some curveballs. Already.
Right.
They're very wise to RPGs and the tropes. So we talked about what you guys thought of Devin, your favorite town god. But what about Poe?
Well, we originally met Poe after we had the scuffle in the bar.
Yeah, and
because
then
he
you-
was part of the group that started the
But
fight.
he wasn't.
But he
in
wasn't
the
in
fight.
the fight. No,
Yeah.
like he apologized, offered to pay for any damages, and bought another round.
Oh
of-
yeah, because one of the thugs destroyed Aristotle's bagpipes,
Yes.
and Poe offered to cover the cost. Yeah.
So I mean, so Soren had a good view. It was like, oh, he pays the debts and apologized. Oh, he was fine and dandy. I mean, already when you see someone, because he's in paladin armor.
Yep.
So he was already decked out in armor with the seal of Anubis, and we're just like, this isn't a thug. Clearly, someone of power. And if he's reacting the way he is, he's less of a threat right now. And I think that was Soren's point of view.
Yeah, I didn't really know what to think of him.
He was like, bird person.
I mean,
Get out of here.
initially Cal just doesn't trust people, so it's like, okay, whatever.
Solid strategy in D&D.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, I know what Devin and Poe thought of you guys.
I'm sure you
Yeah.
I know what the whole town thought of you guys.
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow. How'd you
Probably,
do that, Brandon? Oh, wait.
Probably
you
not
were
very
game.
good.
So, we'll go with better thoughts to worse thoughts.
Okay.
Start you off and then...
There we go. Build us up and then tear us down.
So-
Sounds good.
Just like a normal game of D&D.
Right, exactly.
So, Devin... Devin first thought you guys were going to be trouble. Thought you guys were definitely going to be an issue for him to go and fix, and not gonna. You guys are going to try and like skim the town for money. But after
Wait,
seeing,
you call a bunch of adventurers and like soldiers and stuff like, hey, come to our town, we need your help. It's like, that's a whole lot of team of people that can just turn around and go, no, your cities aren't ours.
Yep, he was very wary of that. But it turned out after seeing Soren and the group, Soren doing his good deed, giving food to a child, and the group putting all their effort into, protecting the inn and trying to shelter people, kind of made him not wary as much. He still didn't like you for starting a bar fight the first night you were there. I was trying to put the sour taste in someone's mouth.
We didn't start the bar fight.
Hey, he didn't know that. He didn't care. And then Poe's initial thought of you was, you guys were a bunch of weak little puppies. That he was gonna, if he went with you, he was gonna have to protect you. Especially after the bar fight. The only one he saw two of you as interesting. It was the big old Goliath, who was walking around just going, and Liren, who was able to call her sword to her. Like, he'd never seen that before, so that definitely gave him an indication that at least two of you had some promise in you. Did not care for Poe. Didn't really care for Aristotle because he's not one for music. So
Well, he was probably like, it's a dumb bard.
I've seen tons of them.
Not another one of these
I'm
guys.
a street performer. God darn it.
The general consensus of the town was they could take or leave you because they
I
didn't.
mean, it's just at the beginning, they were probably a little nervous of having all these. Because from what I remember, it was everything from people that looked okay to people that didn't look
Yes.
so okay.
Yeah.
A lot of people who didn't look okay, didn't look so okay, didn't really stay. A lot of people also died.
Well, that happens.
As
What a good story writing technique. Oh, I wrote too many characters. Let's just
cull them a little bit here.
So I'll pass it off to you guys since this is your first ever, your choices, what you wanted to do and how you wanted to approach things, and I can give you insight as you need.
Okay.
I was going to say, so I think after after everything, we decided to stay, of course. Then we went to the was it the little camp that was closer to the cave system? Wasn't it? We go from the city to like a.
Yes, there was an outpost.
And yeah, so we went there, and that was like the final. Just like if you're gonna do this, you gotta go to that outpost. You'll be out of touch, and you'll be just there, and then go do your deed. And I know from there we went to the caves. And at first it was like little normal, because there was like kobolds out front of it, of course, as you should always start a campaign.
Kobolds. If you're not starting a campaign with kobolds, I seriously question your love for the game.
Because we did that, and then we finally went in the cave, and of course that was where we had to do the whole learning process of how dungeons, quote unquote, work. Because there was a couple of normal things, like, oh look, here's a big room with some weapons, here's a big room with miscellaneous stuff.
That just reminds me of the first ever puzzle I gave you.
Oh gosh,
it was so easy. I'm just gonna give it as it is.
It was the paintings.
There were 4 paintings.
Yeah, forgot about that.
Jack, Queen, King, Ace. Not in any order. They were all shuffled out, and the puzzle pretty much said, "Put them in order," with a little bit more fancy words. And the group stood there and went, "What do we do with these?" I don't understand. And I had to sit here and go, they're like, "Can you draw it out for us?" And my first thought was, what?
We were not having a good night.
We'll see. Well, then that leads into what probably the biggest mistake we made was we found a room where, and this was where we learned that in your world, clockwork things are a thing, and they're usually just mindless automatons. But of course, we find that out after we open a door to 2 very large automatons with like saw blades and hammers and stuff.
Yep.
And our instinct, because you told us afterwards, you thought we would turn around and leave. And we went in, tried to stealth past them, failed, and went, screw it, let's fight them.
And they did not do that well. A lot of you guys went down. You guys didn't go unconscious, but you guys seriously, took down your health total and all forms of it.
Right.
And that's eventually when you wade your way through pretty well.
Right, and that's where we eventually got to the final room where we fought like goblins, hobgoblins, more kobolds and stuff. But that's where we found like the main desk that looked like it was like the head of operations desk, and searched through that.
Which is where Liren
So great.
got a natural 20 on investigation. My whole plan was to give them like a place to return to like, oh, we must have missed something. There was something there. We got to go back. Not when they're under the time crunch and pretense that they're going there. Rolled a natural 20, found the secret compartment that I intended them to find later with a little more, help and insight. And found the...
it was the note that was to say destroy the facility with Bellington's
insignia on it.
Right.
And then you found a item that has been...
synonymous with the campaign, which is a live beating clockwork heart.
So it is a beating heart...
made of clockwork.
that when Liren, who discovered everything, was like, oh yeah, since they're a little more seasoned, they sometimes still grab things, but she instinctively went, oh, I'm just gonna pick this up, as you do in like Skyrim and other games where you just add it to your inventory. She picked it up and as soon as she did, it started to take over her mind.
Mm-hmm. And attaching to her.
It started to attach to her chest, and that's when good old Cal over here.
It's like, oh snap! I'm gonna help this person.
I was trying to help, honestly.
And that's when the heart turned and embedded itself into Cal's chest.
Yeah.
So that was, so that's when they learned that not every magical item they're going to find is some wondrous thing that's going to give them their entire hopes and dreams and wishes in any instant. So that's it did give her a nice bonus though. She could not become exhausted.
Right. You didn't even have to sleep, did you?
Nope.
No.
So how are you mentally affected by that?
Kept having to make wisdom saves. I I mean, because I remember the Clockwork Heart kind of like showed me these visions of like things that I wanted or like this happy future, and it kept telling me to like consume the world in fire and crazy stuff like that. So it definitely wasn't a good thing necessarily. It definitely a little made Cal a little crazy, I think.
So that's when you guys happily made your way. Well,
Yeah, once Cal got her control of her mind, more or less.
happily made your way back to town. You guys were immediately summoned once they realized you were back in town to
Right.
Lord Bellington's estate.
Right.
Which the estate took up a good third of the entire town. It was when I say estate, it's like, imagine not a castle, a little bit smaller than a castle, with a mansion in the middle, and a large wall with an enchanted gate, where you could only go through the gate if you had an item with Bellington's insignia on it, which each of them were given during their ride.
Yeah, because we first went to the Bellington estate to talk to him and what he wanted from him, which was anything information of, or because we were looking for the other half of the sigil. He was like, if you find anything with this, let me know. So then when we came back, we went back to, like you said, we were immediately called back. So then we went there, but since of the stuff that we had found, we somehow managed to convince them
Through very high rolls
that
and
we
very
did-
low rolls.
that
on
we were
my
like,
part.
oh, we killed everything. It's all empty now. But we didn't find anything that tells us anything important. Sorry, Bellington.
So
That
yes.
was the last time I think we were successful at lying to somebody.
Oh yeah,
To be
no.
fair.
So that was their second time really getting to meet Lord Bellington. A very posh, half-elf looking man who wore very regal things, very fine clothing. He had a bunch of unseen servants walking around, and he had a butler, a dragonborn butler named Gerald, who took care of the group and got them, helped them, gave them some supplies when they were there talking to Bellington, gave them food and drink. So when you started to talk to Lord Bellington, what were your impressions?
I thought he was a tool.
You think everyone's a tool?
I really thought he was a tool.
I mean, the first one, it was like he was very much like in the first meeting, it was just like, oh yeah, this is what your typical like
Posh, rich person.
lord person's gonna be. And so Soren's undeterred. It was just like, okay, yeah, he doesn't want to get his hands dirty and whatnot. And so it was one of those things where it was like, I guess we'll do it because clearly he's not gonna do it. But then after finding out more information, you come back and go, you liar. You're a liar. You're a phony.
You're a phony. So, I can give you Lord Bellington's thoughts on all of you.
Oh, please.
My pawns
please
and my
do.
plan.
And his first thoughts on you were, you all were his champions.
Oh, God.
He all thought you were very beautiful in your own ways, and he would love to see you never leave him and stay his beautiful, beautiful, beautiful people.
That's terrifying.
We'll get to more on that here in a bit. But that was his first thought was, you're all so beautiful. Especially Soren. He had a real big thing for how big Soren was.
He
liked him big.
He did. I mean, especially if you're trying to build,
But we'll
some
get to
evil
that.
scheme. You tend to try and find the biggest, baddest people to put on your side.
Yeah.
After that, when we find everything, we decided, it was like, okay, cool. So the things that we were suspicious of, or more specifically, the postmen were suspicious of, we're like, we should probably report back to them.
They immediately became the no.
It was like, okay, the suspicious people aren't the bad guys.
Yeah.
All right. So
Don't
that's
be
when,
suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
so that's when we went back to the postman, gave them the information that we had gotten, and they were like, great, we have information. and that's the whole postman's big thing. So like, we have word of the facility over there that you may want to look into getting in there. Now, from what I remember, we didn't tell them about the heart attached to Cal.
Nope.
No,
We
we didn't.
kept that a secret.
Yeah.
We're just like, there's some clockwork stuff there. And they're like, oh, thanks. It's good to know.
So, now, that was in the night you went, because there was a festival happening in honor of, the summer and you guys doing what you were going to do and, like, your successful annihilation of the group. So you guys went back to the inn and stayed there. And that's when our sneaky rogue decided to sneaky into Poe's room and take something that I did not honestly intend for her to take, which we will, as the story goes, she took an amulet of Poe's, and that definitely the entire group was like, you did what?
Well, okay, so in order to get to that part, so we went to the facility, we finally snuck in with under the festival's guys. Couldn't follow because we saw other people going in.
You guys,
we tried to go in their secret way, but couldn't figure it out. So we went in. I think Soren found something else where he just ripped off a big thing.
Yep.
He was like, "Oh look, here's a hole. Let's get in the
door.
hole."
Yeah, pretty much Soren's MO. I made something.
I made a hole. Let's get over there. And so that's where we went down. We're trying to find information, but then we were attacked.
You tried to sneak, and you did poorly.
No.
You snuck in through some very, very close calls, but when you were in there,
Right,
I
that's
do
where the
believe
gnolls came in.
one of you snuck so poorly, you set off everyone in the building knew you were there.
That was me.
It was
Gee,
you. That's right.
I wonder, was it the big guy?
So you were attacked. Luckily, you
We
just
ran
cleared
into
a room.
Was it the fire? No, it was the Ganassi we ran into. The fire Ganassi.
You met him later.
No, we met someone down there, which is how I alerted everyone. Because I alerted everyone by saying my name loudly. I think we ran into.
Yeah, you did. You did run to the fire Ganassi. Charon was down there.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was your first. You didn't really know why he was there. You were like, I'm Soren Thunderfist, and that's when I taught them what they say in character matters and how they say it matters. Because one, it adds a little more immersion. Two, it makes it hilarious when things like this happen, where someone goes, "I'm Soren Thunderfist,"
Hilarious.
and then immediately I went, "Is that how you say it?" And Tristan was like, "Yeah," and I was like, "You hear Soren Thunderfist, Thunderfist," as the echoes down the hallway, and immediately you hear the shuffling of other bodies, and the entire group
growling of a gnoll.
the entire group went, "Oh no."
It was
done
that
bad.
moment that they realized that they were in deep shit.
So you barely fought off everyone.
Well, it helped that the gnoll killed half of his.
Yes, the
team.
gnoll that they had captured went a little nuts and berserky and started eating people on the way. So you barely took care of them and were very, very close to death, and that's when
Poe.
Cal brought out the thing that she stole, and it went whoom, and Poe popped in front of them, which they found out that they stole his amulet of returning, where he could, use a charge of his amulet to return to that amulet, which was in his room, safe and sound. And so he found himself
In the middle of a dungeon.
in the middle of a facility that he did not know and was not aware of, and that is when he found out that somebody also had a clockwork heart, and proceeded to go, "Hey, I'm sorry, this is just the way it's gonna be," and ripped it out of her chest, which did a lot of damage and nearly killed her, and used a spell to then boof away.
Yeah.
And that's when they were contacted by my favorite NPC. Would you like to introduce him?
So, his favorite NPC, and probably mine too, is Fox. And Fox is a tiefling who happens to also be a child of Lilith. And he kind of popped in and offered us sort of a safe refuge in the abyssal city of Brass. And in exchange, we would be required to bring him Lord Bellington's soul, which we kind of saw as a win-win because we already were distrustful of Bellington. And, hey, we get to, like, rest for the night and not die. So it worked out for a while. While we were kind of resting, we agreed to his terms. We rested in the city of Brass and wound up meeting a gold dragonborn named Rhaegorn, who wound up staying up on our team. But
He was a ranger.
He was a ranger.
Ranger Bloodhunter.
Yes, Ranger Bloodhunter. Who was also a demon hunter on the run from demons in the city of Brass.
He was hunting Titavillis?
His main goal is Titavillis, which, for those of you who don't know, 1, Lilith is the mother of all demons. 2, the Titavillis is the demon of secrets, of information, and of lies. So, an interesting demon to be looking for, to say the least. So they found, Rhaegorn, also known as Greg, a little off-putting at first because he hopped out of a chest that was in the room and was like, "Hello!" And everyone immediately had that stand. I was like, "Who are you?" No, who are you?
No, wait, he had charged into the room and we put him in the
Yes,
chest.
That's right.
We put him in the chest.
He was like, I need to hide. And he was like, here's a chest, badoop. And then his panther was like, I'm going to hide in the rafters, badoop. And we're like,
yes, he had a panther too.
Yeah, he had a panther named
cool.
Odysseus.
we were like, what the heck is going on?
And then Fox wound up showing back up and was basically like, "Hey, have you seen this guy?" And
Have you seen this man?
for some reason, we were like, "No, what? Who are you talking about? We've never met this guy. Who? Have you met a Greg? I don't know Greg.
What's a dragonborn?
What's a dragonborn?" Yeah, we just straight up lied to him.
And it worked.
And it worked. And he believed us. Or at least we think he believed us.
Yeah.
And then he popped out of the chest and we were like, "Who are you?"
Who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
He's like, I'm a demon hunter. My name's Dragorn Buzztooth, but you can call me Greg.
You're bad at this.
I mean, you made it into an abyssal city, but you're bad at this.
Yeah.
But that's where, so he hid and he stayed hidden?
Yeah, we kind of hid him throughout the night, just to kind of keep him safe from the demons that were after him. And then when we woke up back in Humbleton.
No,
you woke up back.
No, he came back and opened a door back up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's right. And then,
And that's when we walked through and we...
Some time had passed.
Right. But that's where the door appeared out of nowhere, opened. It was in the middle of a courtyard and we all kind of funneling out. And that's where we ran into Bilal. But Devin was there, eventually showed up.
Devin was doing a patrol.
Yeah, he was like, what the heck? So yeah, we ran into Bilal, which is a now member of our group. But Bilal, who appeared human at the time, a druid, was in the middle of, because it was the middle of the night. So he was praying to the moon goddess. Yep. And all of a sudden, we come funneling out of nowhere.
Oh, God.
Holy crap. Oh, this is terrifying. And he's like, who the heck are you guys? We're like, hi, I'm Soren Thunderfist. And who are you? I'm Bilal. What are you doing here? And then Devin shows up going, what are all you doing here?
How did you get here?
And Bilal's like, I don't know. And Devin's like, well, you're part of this group now. I don't want to hear anything about it. He's like, what? And he's like, well, you caught me with him now. If you guys separate, we'll think you're suspicious. Bilal's like,
I guess
I
have
guess
to.
I'm stuck in this.
Yeah.
That's when they also they decided to eventually re-enter the facility, and they were the facility was once again on high alert after someone had broken and then disappeared. And that's when they learned of a cult called the Forge, which, as all things are in D&D, if you learn a cult with a name, it's probably pretty important. So let's get your guys' insights on Rhaegorn and Bilal first.
Rhaegorn is as bad at his job.
I think Cal was a little, I'm not going to say scared, but maybe just, because here's a demon hunter, and obviously she's a tiefling, so there's kind of the automatic association of, tieflings with demons. So she was sort of, on her guard. a bit.
Makes sense.
Well, I think what it first has to come down to is our thoughts of Fox, because he was the initial thing.
Well, we're going to get to it.
Well, no. I think that leads us to how we felt about Rhaegarn. Because like with Soren, he doesn't trust Fox. He's a demon, and normally he's fine with, his whole thing, Viking lore is like, I'll go fight to my death. It's fine. But he's like, oh no, these people that I've, committed myself to protecting are dying. Well, let me make sure that they don't die. Yeah. Fine, I'll make this deal to go into this demon. So then when Rhaegarn shows up, he's like, fuck this demon. I'm going to hide the demon hunter. So it was one of those, like, you're bad at this job, but I'll help you hide for the time being.
Yeah.
And then what about Bilal when you first met him?
I mean, he was seemingly insignificant in the grand scheme of things.
Druids.
Well, he was just
Tree huggers!
He was just some quiet guy in the middle of the night who got sucked into it. It's like, well, sucks to be you, but hey, be part of our team. It'll be mostly okay.
It'll be fun.
Welcome to our ragtag group of unnamed adventurers.
Well, seeing how Sword is so optimistic about it all anyway, so it's just like, you'll be stuck with it, but it'll be over soon enough.
I know Liren's first reaction to Rhaegarn was, you are, once again, too loud and too obnoxious for where we are and what we're dealing with. And Bilal, she was like, you're good. You're good people. You're quiet.
You're quiet.
If I'm stuck here, at least I don't have to listen to you.
For now.
Yeah, for now. And so then that brings us to, what do you guys think about our good buddy Fox? Who is a white tiefling with stark white hair, smaller horns, who didn't wear like regal things, wore more like fancy. My version of the City of Brass is kind of like the Roaring Twenties. So there's like jazz, and because a lot of people think the Roaring Twenties is full of sin and like that's prohibition and all this stuff. So he was very like a big shot with his fancy clothes and like his suit, and he was head to toe in like white, silver, like various shades. So what did you guys think of him?
Again, Soren, and when they're demons and stuff, it's one of those things, they're just monsters most of the time. And so he doesn't, and of course it's usually with full-fledged ones. He's probably met tieflings in his passing that aren't bad. I mean, you were fine for now as Cal. You were just a person.
For now.
Bum, bum, bum.
But however, just the way he was so connected with, the City of Brass and everything, it's like, even Great Hela isn't this bad. Yeah. It's like, I don't trust you at all.
I mean, and I think that's also why Cal initially distrusted him, but at the same time, like, it seemed like he was offering up, like, a reasonable thing. Like, we wanted to at that point, I think we had decided that we wanted to take Bellington out, and, he was... It just seemed like their motivations kind of lined up a little bit, so distrustful, but willing to work with.
So that led them to their second attempt back into the building.
Right, now that we had 2 extra party members to help us, it seemed a little bit more feasible.
So you got your way back in and fought your way back in, and that you snuck in with your sneaky sneak, and you heard that Lord Bellington was discussing plans with somebody through a mirror, and through the conversation, you just discovered that it was the demon lord Mephistopheles.
Right, because that's where we sneaked through a door and watched him do it.
And you saw him not in his elf form, you saw him in his demon form. He was a tiefling, just like Cal, but a little more darker in the tone, skin tone and everything. They also discovered that Lord Bellington had a pet, and that pet was what they saw on the previous nights.
And that pet being...
a clockwork dragon named Keeper.
Because dragons aren't scary enough when you're a level 1 player.
No, we were like at level 3 at this point.
No, maybe we were like
level 2.
Level 2.
You got 3 after that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Level 2 player.
Because we leveled up after the automatons.
Yeah, you leveled up after the first go into the seaside cave.
You're not wrong.
Which scared them a lot. Keeper is a dragon who's not mixed with any sort of organic matter, is a straight up clockwork dragon. whose wings and everything, like entire body was made of metal and weaponry, and he could shoot
spears. And
he could shoot spears and swords, and had daggers for talons, and could shoot a fireball. And through a hard-fought battle against Bellington, Gerald, who they found out knew about everything the entire time, and was a darn good butler, helping his master
all, like,
till the
Hulk
end.
mode and everything.
I actually liked Gerald initially.
Gerald, yeah, it was just a butler.
And then,
and
of
he was
course,
just like,
That's
because your affinity for Alfred and Batman.
Yeah. I was like, oh, what a helpful butler being so nice. He's just working for this.
I mean,
dick
he
to
literally-
pay the
I mean-
bills.
Yeah, and then they defeated and they killed both of them. They did not end up killing Keeper.
Keeper had ran away at first?
Keeper didn't run away at first. It was Bilal and Rhaegon were fighting and keeping Keeper occupied,
Right.
while the other three were going after Gerald and Bellington,
Right.
which then allowed you to
extract the soul.
Yeah, ice Bellington, take out the jar, take his soul the jar that Fox gave you,
And that's when Keeper used
And
all
Keeper-
of his moves to go
and grabbed Bellington and took off.
Yeah.
So Bellington's body was not recovered.
Right.
So they pretty much found down there a laboratory that Bellington was working on, where there were tubes for the initial party members that had their names on it, as well as clockwork pieces to affix to them. Because I'll give you insight, because he dead now. He's dead.
Gone.
As far as everyone knows.
I don't buy it.
He's dead.
Nudge, nudge.
Roll for bluff.
Named up. So they discovered that he was planning on using their bodies and making clockwork soldiers for himself that he could use using their individual abilities and spirits to make his own little private army. And they found other clockwork things, and they found other tests, they found failed experiments, they found documentation. And you
we
guys
found a door that leads up to...
You found a path that leads up into the Bellington estates.
Right.
Which
we went up through, walked out the front door, and said hi to the guards, and they were like, "What the hell?"
They're like, "Excuse me," and the guard was like, "Ow!
Hi,
How'd you get in here?"
Never mind that. Could you fetch me Devin?
And they did at Spear Point. They're like, "You don't get to move anymore."
I'm not
Yeah.
moving anywhere. Like,
So-
sounds like that's fine.
Devin and the more elite guards showed up, and
Walk them
after
down.
you explain what would happen, you let them down. Devin and Koth were very like, "What is happening?" This was just supposed to be our gift. We were like, "What? This is supposed to be like a symbol. Let's get our stuff back."
Now there's a whole big thing going on.
They found the place Keeper went out of was a longer tunnel that went out underground to the ocean, which the coast was not too far away, but far enough away it was very well hidden. And they had pretty much come to an accord with the team that they had a mutual trust in each other at this point, where you guys helped the town. They weren't gonna, try and put you on trial for murder.
They're like, "Oh, you did good.
You did a good."
Because we had enough evidence, including the note from
Right.
the first cave that we made sure to keep.
Yes, and
So that was produced, and then all the other evidence below.
and the cunning words and the truthfulness behind your words convinced Devin to become an ally at that point.
Right, to the point where they named, the library after us?
Yes, which that is when you guys made
Our
your
name.
name, which is the
The Stormbreakers.
Yay.
Stormbreakers. So,
No one else had any other ideas.
which is generally how it goes. Either everyone has a terrible name, which the group sticks with, or one
The
person...
murder hobos.
Yeah, the group, or someone comes in the group and no one else can fight it, so it gets stuck as the name. So that pretty much ended the first arc. So let's get more into nitty gritty. Let's talk about it. Let's figure this stuff out. So, did it surprise you the depth that Bellington was in on everything?
As a player, no. I think it was one of those things where it's almost like any kind of story. It's like, that's Because I think it was almost like the second we even heard him, at least one of them was like, nope, he's the bad guy.
Yeah.
I do believe that was Cal.
Yeah. I pretty much, like, I basically was like, oh, we've been summoned to this town by this guy. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, my money's on it, it's him. So as a player, not so much surprised. I think that I was more surprised as like I was more surprised about like him being a tiefling, him working with Mephistopheles,
right,
more than him actually just being the bad guy.
Right, and I would agree with that because there's the whole like because even afterwards you're like, oh, he is the bad guy, even as your character. Like, he's the bad guy, and then it's like, oh, he's secretly a tiefling talking through walls.
Yeah.
And
he's a bad guy.
He's got a giant pet dragon made of clockwork. I want to say
there was even some point where I don't remember if it was the first or second time we went and talked to him, but somebody did some sort of check, and we
he did a detect
magic, and we got, like, this negative vibe from him. And I think, like, that was the moment that really sort of solidified it. But, you know, when your player rolls really low on insight,
and you just gotta go with it.
And you just gotta go with it, then you just gotta go with it. So, yeah.
Because, I mean, as far as even going as far as to, like, him working with Mephistopheles, it's one of those things where, like, well, yeah, he's going to be a small player in the game. Especially when it comes to the worlds of D&D. He can be, you know, like, I'm high and mighty as a tiefling, but he's still going to answer to someone if he wants to maintain that kind of control. Especially for him to have something like a massive amount of power and then the massive amount of just access to things like the clockwork. He is not going to be working alone at that level.
Did the individual he was working with, did Mephistopheles make you guys have him take a moment to be like, oh, because Mephistopheles is a larger known demon name.
I was kind of surprised that, I mean, you would throw out somebody like that. Not in a bad way, just more like, oh, we're screwed. It was one of those kind of moments.
Like, we had to fight him one-on-one.
That'd be fun. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
That'll be great.
That will be. You hear that? That's why, yeah. I mean, so yeah, that in and of itself was kind of a shock. I mean, well, it was a shock and more of like, oh, Mephistopheles is in the picture. Great!
I think it was more of like just realizing that this is much bigger than a single town.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a whole larger plot afoot.
Yeah.
So, how did you guys feel after you beat Bellington?
I mean, outside the automatons, that was our big, like you said, it's the end of the first arc.
How'd you guys feel?
That was
your first ever D&D arc.
Yeah, I think that was pretty rewarding in general.
Yeah.
I mean, first off, we got to level up again, so that's always nice. I mean, because there was that panic of going around and going like, oh crap, are we going to have enough evidence to prove that we were innocent? Or we're going to have to fight our way out of town, but like we lucked out with having the evidence, holding on to that evidence,
and being persuasive enough and being truthful enough.
Yeah. Which is lucky that Soren doesn't really lie.
Not tell a lie. Yeah. Honest Abe, honest Soren.
And
still honest.
Goes,
sometimes
you're too dumb to lie to me.
Sometimes
like, yes, I am too dumb.
To a fault.
Yep.
Which that will definitely happen. Get it to a later date. So, hey, Sticky Fingers.
Yeah.
How'd you feel after you stole the amulet? And how did Soren feel after he found out?
In my defense, I didn't know what it did.
That's not a defense.
At that point in time, like, as a player, not so much as Cal, it was like, oh, I'm playing a rogue, and, like, this being, like, my first real, like, D&D experience. Like, I tried in the past. But, yeah, I was kind of playing up that rogue stereotype, like, ooh, a shiny, I want it. So I took it.
Keep talking.
And that was kind of like I learned my lesson from that.
Well, I think just as players, like you said, like we were playing those stereotypes more because we were still getting used to it. So
yeah.
When you're a barbarian or a rogue,
smash, steal.
I mean, to be fair, like, you know, as much as I think you want to, as a DM, surprise us as players, I think it's just as fun when we do things that surprise you.
Some of that comes down to just rolls. Like,
it's the best worst feeling. It's the best worst feeling. Like, when you went to steal the amulet, I was like, oh. First off, you rolled high enough to find it. Second off, I was like, oh, she's not going to take it. She's not going to be that guy. Nope, you were.
Yeah, I was.
You became that guy in an instant. And immediately after that, I was like, well, depending on... Because I had it figured out when he was going to come back, when he was going to boof. And it depended on where you were, depending on what he did.
Right.
So if you guys didn't get stuck in that fight and didn't have to worry about that, and you guys kept going, you guys would have made it to Bellington. He would have appeared during the Bellington thing, and it would have been a whole big kerfuffle. Him being like, whoa, ha, oh, ah, no, what? Ah.
I think I would have preferred that to happen, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, we all would have. You, or
Yeah.
not me. You all would have. But I preferred it the way it happened. It gave me a
Yeah.
chance to input my favorite NPC sooner.
Well, I think the whole thing with Poe showing back up was, at the time, so with the way that the Clockwork Heart worked for Cal, was that it kind of made her want to keep it, even though it was driving her crazy. So to have it kind of like ripped out, like literally, was sort of like a little terrifying. And just instantly, like, as if I already didn't hate birds, like, I just instantly hated Poe. Like, and was a little terrified of him. So, that kind of changed. I think if you had him, like, boof in when we were fighting Bellington, I think that would have gone much differently, and things may not have happened as they did.
Well, I imagine also, because you mentioned, you kind of wanted the heart. I think some of that comes from the fact of something that we haven't really talked about with Cal's character is that she's has the Haunted One background.
Yeah.
And she is haunted by a journal, which seemingly has bad things in mind for her. And the heart was almost like, he's like, hey, you could have some good things.
Yeah,
so once it
yeah.
was gone, Cal was like striving for like, no, I'm tired of this existence I already have, and I'm being haunted. This sucks. It's like, give me the good thing back. Give it back.
Right. And I think that was kind of the thing, was like Cal had just had like this really shitty life, and so to like possibly, like, even though like
No
she
matter
kind of
how
knew on
terrible
some
it's
level
gonna
it was
be in the end.
garbage, like to possibly have this glimpse of like a better future was just sort of appealing, even if it was total bullshit.
Right.
Which we didn't make note of it, but we totally forgot. The throw of the flesh. The throw of the flesh.
Oh
the
yes. So one of you want to describe that, because
that was a dwarf who knew about
That was
the
a
clockwork.
that was a dwarf. They had talked to two individuals before when they went into town, before they went off onto their journey to the cave for the first time. They met a hippie elf who was very into
the mushroom guy.
very into mushrooms and very into nature and things like that, and was being told that the trees were telling him, things were bad, and nature was coming to him and telling him things were bad. And then they also met a crazy dwarf who said he knew what was happening. He knew there was something underneath Bellington's estate, but no one believed him and was a rambling madman.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so the group just trusted him and agreed to meet with him outside of town at a night. And during that time, they realized that he had been marked and decided to, not heal him, not do anything else. Originally, they just...
Well, no, because we tried to do anything, but we didn't have anything else except for that glowing sigil we saw. And was it your idea to cut it off?
It was my idea to cut it off.
They cut this poor man's flesh off of on his chest. So they cut most of his chest skin off.
Was this just that?
Yes.
Was his back?
It was on his chest.
It was on his chest.
And to be fair, I thought, if we remove the mark, we'll remove the curse, which was just poor thinking on my part, honestly.
That's not how curses work.
Yeah, well.
So they removed it, and then they were like, "What do you do with it? What do you do with it? What do you do with it?" And then
the flesh.
the
We
chant
started
began.
chanting,
Throw
the flesh. Throw the flesh.
In our defense, that was mostly Aristotle that started.
Well, okay, he started it. And then at one point the chant turned from throw the flesh to burn the flesh.
Which they did.
Which we did.
And nothing happened. The man
died.
No, he was healed. You guys spent a healing spell on him, which cured him of his problem. You guys could
Boy,
have
if
done
only
that.
we had thought about that before.
If only you would have done, a basic healing spell on him. He then ran away and said he'll never forget, and you haven't heard from him since.
Yeah.
He'll probably come back to haunt us.
Haunt you? You saved his life, technically. But that wrapped up the first arc, which then gave them the freedom to head out into the world.
And that, to help us with that direction, was we had heard that there was a town nearby
To the west.
that had a coliseum, and in that coliseum there was another dragonborn was also a worshiper of Thor. And at the time, it was just Soren was just like, "I'm gonna go do that. You guys want to come?" And
we're like, I ain't nothing better to do. Sure.
That was everyone's thought. Was like, well, I guess we can.
Yeah.
It's better to stay together now that we're, a demon lord has seen us. Until we can safely get away.
And then that leads us to the second arc.
Which we will return for at a later time. But for now, that kind of wraps up the first part of our story. So thank you guys for listening in. We'll be back shortly with arc number 2.
The danger in Dramic.
Bye.
Bye.